the scars remind me to appreciate the days I don't have to.
I remember him saying he got to know these local people so well, and they would just ask him, "Why are you still here? You kind of got what you wanted in the first year or so. Why are you still with us? What do you expect to get?" So,
Well,
yeah, I thought he had some real insights into that whole experience.
well, we're talking about Doug Lau and
Laux.
Laux.
Laux, yeah, you always had trouble with that.
Okay, and he worked with the CIA, and he wrote a book. Do you remember the name of his book?
It's called Left of Boom.
Oh, he left a boom.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That was, and once it was described to me what it meant, I thought like,
Yeah,
that's a good
when he
title,
explained
like-
what it meant, it was pretty
yeah,
cool.
when he explained it, yeah. But
It was kind of like whatever incident had happened, like any kind of, a bomb went off or something like that. I think Left of Boom was, what happened before that incident. They would call
Yeah.
it like the
Yeah.
incident prior to the
left
shit
of,
kicking off. Like
yeah.
left of the shit kicking off is Left of Boom.
Yeah.
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 But Kalen just told me that he died, and
He was
yeah,
young.
42.
42,
Wow.
I
and
believe 42 or
wow.
44.
he had a lot
Wow.
of. I remember him having a lot of medical issues that he talked about in his book, and we talked about them a little bit. But I really liked him. I really, really liked him. So that was sad news.
Yeah, I just
Yeah,
wanted to
real-
say he was a friend of mine, and we met. He wrote the book Left of Boom, and then he came into the Corolla show to promote it.
Yeah.
And then when he was there, I became friends with him, and we would do like yearly trips up to Yosemite. And
Oh,
we'd
really?
Hang out, and we became pretty good friends doing that. And then we'd talk. We talk a lot, and he's kind of like he's not gonna tell you secrets. He's kind of a
Yeah.
quiet, reserved guy, but
Yeah.
but yeah, good guy. And we would keep talking, afterwards. And when we were starting up the podcast, I knew he was an interesting story, but I knew that he didn't do interviews. He was not a big interview guy. And I asked him, "Hey, would you be willing to come on?" And he said, "Yeah, for you and Michael, sure." And he pretty much flew out here from Kansas to do the show, like pretty much just to do that.
Oh, I didn't know
Wow.
that.
Well, he did some like consult work on TV shows about the military and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And he was
Yeah,
doing some,
I know he had done a little bit of that.
and he was doing some show for Hulu that he didn't even really care about, and they were having a premiere. And I remember I picked him up to drive him to the studio, and I was like, "Oh, you're going to this premiere thing?" And he was like, "Nah, I don't really want to go to that,"
Right.
even though they wanted him to.
Right.
And so yeah, he had that to do as well, and I think he had a couple friends in town. But yeah, he pretty much just came to do our podcast. And yeah, I just wanted to mention he was a good friend. I'm very sad that he's gone. And if you haven't seen his episode, he was on the first season, 5th episode, Doug Laux. So yeah, go back and check out that
Or check
episode.
out his
Yeah.
book, because I found his story really riveting. He was a dedicated fellow. I mean, to spend a year learning that language, Pashto, and then find out that it was the wrong dialect that he had been studying, and he had to. Yeah, I mean, what energy and reserves that guy seemed to have,
Yeah, so he was a CIA case officer and a field agent, and he infiltrated Al Qaeda and the Taliban. I think he spent most of his time in Afghanistan and Syria, really embedded with them, learned the language. He was like the kind of the CIA didn't have people that knew that language,
No.
So he was the guy that learned it and had to be the between everybody, which he talks about a lot during the interview.
Yeah,
if you want to go
yeah.
back and listen to it, but very
And
interesting.
they sort of knew, the local people knew he was a CIA guy because he was the guy they could go to for money.
Yeah.
If they needed money, he had money. So I found his experience really riveting to listen to, and it's sad to hear that he's gone.
One of the things that I remember from the interview, and when we were talking, we were talking about Tombstone, and Tombstone, like Aliens, like the Terminator, has got so many phrases that people quote to me. I want your blood, I want your soul, I want them both right now. All right, Lunger, let's do it. I'll be your Huckleberry. like all of that stuff, you know, and it just like there's, you know, it's amazing, you know, which line, the Latin, all the kind of stuff in that movie. But I remember the line that he kind of gravitated to when we were talking a little bit about it. We didn't talk much about it, but he said the line, he liked it when Johnny Ringo said, and I think the line is, we're watching Billy Zane,
Yeah.
you know,
Perform on stage.
Yeah, and there are people are bragging about, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and people are yelling, and Powers looks over at me, Curly Bill looks over at Johnny Ringo, and Johnny, well, he goes, what do you think, Johnny? And Johnny says, I already done that.
Yeah.
Already done that, you know, and that was the line that he kind of gravitated to, and it kind of, to me, it kind of meant he'd already been in the mix, you know.
Yeah,
he'd already done that, already done that. So, well, that's too bad. That's a first for us, I think, having somebody that we've talked to.
Wow, that is true.
I wanted to ask you, Jim, because I know you would know this, and I've never understood it. It looks like that we're going to have a government shutdown in a couple of weeks, and
no, in a couple of days.
Okay, a couple of days. Thank you. This is why I'm asking you, and you know, the Republicans are saying it's the Democrats' fault. The Democrats are saying the Republicans' fault. I don't really want to like start taking any sides on this or whatever. But this is something that seems. How many times a year does this happen? Twice? 4 times?
No, it last happened when Trump was president.
What?
It last happened. Are you talking about these government shutdowns?
No, not the shutdowns.
Oh.
The leading up to, unless the parties can make a deal. How often is that? Do you know? Because I've heard about these government shutdowns. You hear about it. To me, you hear about it 3 or 4 times a year. Oh, they're going to cut the government unless this happens, and then everything works out.
What they do is they will have a certain deadline, and they'll say, well, we can't really come to terms. We'll pass a continuing resolution.
Yes.
Keep us going for another, and then it depends on how long a continuing resolution they pass. It can be 30 days, it can be 90 days, it could be 6 months, you know.
Well, once they pass the bill or whatever it is, and how long does that last?
Well, it lasts as long as they said it in the bill. Like, for example, right now, the fiscal year for the government goes from October 1st to September 30th. So September 30th, tomorrow, is the last day of the fiscal year. And unless there's new legislation to authorize more spending, the government basically shuts down at that point. The Republicans have proposed a 7-week extension, a continuing resolution to go for 7 weeks. Democrats are saying, we would go with that, but we need some protection for people who are going to lose their health care, especially these subsidies for people who got their private coverage through the Affordability, Care Act, Obamacare. And those people are going to be losing their subsidies, and they're going to have to be paying amounts that will basically kick a lot of people off of insurance unless those subsidies are restored. And that's something even Republicans have said, yeah, we can kind of go along with that, but why don't we pass the 7-week resolution and we'll discuss this later? And Democrats are saying, no, now is when we've got leverage, and we think we at least need to get this. They also would like to get some of these Medicaid cuts restored that would protect rural hospitals because they're already shutting down around the country. So Democrats think they have leverage now to try to get those two things fixed from the one big beautiful bill that were basically eliminated by the one big beautiful bill. And that's they want to see those things put back put back restored. So I know that, we faced something like this some months ago, and Schumer said he would support a continuing resolution because he was, and this was back when Elon Musk was running Doge and they were making cuts right and left, and he was afraid that a government shutdown would only give Trump and Musk more ability to start laying off people. And from what I've been reading, if there is a government shutdown, then the Trump people intend to do a whole lot more layoffs. So, we'll see. Now, supposedly they're meeting today. We'll see where that goes. So,
Yeah,
almost
I am so glad that happy that I never got involved in that fucking business. I mean, that is just like, it just sounds horrendous to be involved in.
It's really gummy at this particular point,
Yeah, in politics. There was I saw the vice president on Fox, I think, yesterday, and
you mean Hillbilly Elegy author J.D. Vance?
Yeah. He wrote that. Ron Howard directed the movie, right?
Yeah.
And somebody plays his mother, the very famous actress.
I think it was Glenn Close played his mother.
Glenn Close, yeah.
Or played the grandma, and I think Amy Adams played his mother. I'm not sure.
Ed L'Amato took me to a party once, and I sat next to her, and
Glenn?
I was like, yes, Glenn Close.
Yeah.
I sat right next to her, but I was like too intimidated to talk to her much, She had just done, what's the story that she did with William Hurt and all of those guys that Kevin Costner got cut out?
Yeah. The Big Chill.
The Big Chill.
Yeah.
Is that Lawrence Kasdan? Lawrence Kasdan directed that?
Yeah. That's the one where Kevin Costner basically got cut out of the movie, except for his body at the very beginning.
Yeah.
When they're preparing a corpse for a funeral.
What? I know he did Silverado, but where did Lawrence Kasdan come from, Jim? What were his what are his big hits, Lawrence Kasdan's?
Well, I think he started in advertising, so I know he was doing some kind of professional writing, and then in the late 70s, his screenplays started to get widely read. And he had written a screenplay called Continental Divide that was a romantic comedy that had a lot of people attached to it at various times. Michael Douglas was going to do it. Steven Spielberg was going to direct it. It wound up getting made with John Belushi and I think Blair Brown. I'm not sure of the cast, but it wasn't a big movie. It didn't perform the way people thought it might have at one time. Maybe if Spielberg had directed Michael Douglas in it, it might have been a different movie, And then he got a chance to do some work on one of the Star Wars scripts, the Return of the second one, Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
And he at that time he had a script that he wanted to direct called Body Heat.
Oh, he did Body Heat.
Yes, and that was his directing debut.
Oh, right.
And I remember I had a couple of months off between when I left ICM in the summer and started at Paramount. And so I just kind of sat on the beach and read screenplays. And I remember picking up Body Heat and reading it and putting it down and saying, don't touch a word. That's a movie on the page. And it more or less got shot that way. And about a year later. So Body Heat was what really kind of propelled him forward. And then he did Silverado, Big Chill.
The Big Chill did pretty well, didn't it? What?
Yeah.
Kalen?
Return of the Jedi. Pretty big.
Oh, okay. So
was that the one he worked on?
No, he also did. He started on Empire Strikes Back, but he also was a writer on Return of the Jedi.
When did he do Grand Canyon?
91.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear a lot about him, and I've always been sort of interested in what he directed. I have a question for you, Jim. I didn't have anything to watch the other night, and I'm flipping through stuff, and I have to admit now, I am that old guy, and none of the new movies really seem to interest me. Plus, I'm so old, I don't even know any of the cast members. Usually I'll look up a movie.
That's pretty embarrassing, yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll look up a movie, and I'll say, because, I won't know the title, and, my phone will show it to me, and I'll say, the details. And then they'll give me, a summary of the story and then the cast. And these days, about 7 out of every 10 times, I don't recognize anybody in the cast
Or
at
they'll
all.
say so-and-so who was, sensational in the hit movie, and I never heard of any.
By the way, Caitlin,
Never heard of the
can
hit
you look
movie
up
they were in, the previous credits.
Can you look up box office for this past weekend? I've been hearing recently about how animation is really starting to dig into the box office, and I think one of the big hits in the last week or two is an animated series. Is that correct?
I wound up watching Midnight Run again because Turner Classic Movies presented it Friday night. And if they present it, then it's going to be unedited, no commercials, etc. And what was really interesting about it was they had Paul Thomas Anderson on to introduce it. And they were talking about how he had one battle after another opening that weekend. So it was fairly recently taped interview with Paul Thomas Anderson.
He had what did he have opening?
He has a movie called One Battle After Another
with Leonardo DiCaprio
and Sean Penn.
And
One
Sean
battle
Penn
after another.
Yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn.
Really?
It's getting sensational reviews.
This is he came on. He came on to talk about
he came on to sort of present two movies. One of them was called Running on Empty with Judd Hirsch and Christine Lottie, about 60s underground people on the run.
Yes.
It was made years ago.
Yes, I remember.
And he also introduced Midnight Run.
But he was there to promote the movie.
It sounds like other movies that are like One Battle After Another. Am I right, Jim?
Yeah. He was talking about how much he likes these two movies.
And that's Benicio del Toro, correct?
Benicio del Toro, Sean Penn, Leonardo DiCaprio, Regina Hall.
Yeah. I heard a quote from Leonardo DiCaprio, and people usually don't go out on especially somebody like Leo. I forgot, it was much subtler, but it was kind of like, this is a motherfucking good movie. You're gonna want to watch this one. This is really a good one.
Promoting a lot. He's putting a lot of his energies into promoting the movie.
Into promoting that. And when does that get released?
It came out Friday.
It came out Friday.
So you were asking about box office.
Yes.
The number one movie is One Battle After Another at $22.5 million.
Okay.
The next one is an animated movie called Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie, at $13 million.
And third?
The next two are horror movies: The Conjuring, which is The Strangers, Chapter 2.
Okay.
And then at number 5 is another animated movie called Demon Slayer.
Well, I had read recently, I don't know if it was Disney, but it was one of the big companies that I think it was somewhere between 15 and 20% of all of their content was now animated and animation. And when I was at home, and when my son Alex was staying with me, Caitlin's brother and Dashiell's brother, Devin and Taylor's brother, he was talking to me about an animated show that I should watch that he was really into. Do you know what it was?
Just because I've talked to him before. Is it called Invincible?
Oh, it's called Invincible?
I don't know. He likes a lot of animated shows, so it could be many things, but he's told me about a show called Invincible before.
Okay.
So I'm guessing that might be. But that's about superheroes. That doesn't sound like something you would be into.
Well, anyway, it was an animated show, and he also liked... what was the one that got won all the Academy Awards about the ER guys suing him? The Pit. Yeah, and he likes The Pit because he's a medic. And,
So that
that show he particularly liked. But I thought it was interesting that 20% of a big company's film production is going into animation. That's kind of a change, isn't it? I mean, I guess they've always done kids movie. I guess the kids movies are.
I mean, even these days, a lot of the kids movies are being remade as live action ones.
That's true.
Like what?
Well, Lilo and Stitch was the big one this year. I think they made that into a live action. They made a boatload of money.
Okay.
They've tried. They've done it with all the Disney movies. I think the first one to kind of really do it was Jon Favreau, The Jungle Book.
I was going to say, you
Once-
mentioned Jon Favreau's Jungle Book, yeah.
Yeah,
And-
once
and
that
Lion
one
King
did well.
and-
And then they've kind of, and I think a couple of them did okay. But I mean, this year Snow White was the big disaster that everybody couldn't stop
And
talking
that
about.
went from animated to a right.
They did a live action one.
Well, and
it
what
just
was the
tanked.
deal with that girl? Why was everybody so down on her? The woman who played that character.
I don't know exactly. I just know kind of what I've seen online. But
What's her
when
name?
she weighed in on politics a little bit.
Oh.
Yeah.
Actors weighing in on politics. Yeah.
Doesn't go well with Disney. They don't
Well,
appreciate that.
I think she made a kind of pro-Palestinian statement.
Oh.
Her name's Rachel Zegler, and she's also in the movie with Gal Gadot, who is Israeli. And I think I think once she did that, Disney was like, And then on top of that, they were gonna have dwarfs, real, it's a live action dwarves playing the seven dwarves or however many there are.
Yes. Yeah.
And then
There's 7 of them, I think.
I think is there 12 or is there 7? I don't know. And then I don't know if it was solely because of him, but Peter Dinklage came out and said like you shouldn't do that. That's wrong. And then he faced backlash
about her.
No, not about her. About the fact that they're just using dwarfs to play the dwarfs.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So then I think a large portion of the dwarf community was pissed at him because like, okay, yeah, you're successful, but we're trying to get work too. But
Yeah.
Disney ended up going with animated ones, which just apparently I haven't seen it, just looked and felt really weird. So it's kind of the combination of those two things that I really think just fucked up that movie.
Oh, I see. Yeah, okay. I was mentioning before that I got I was at home a couple nights ago, Friday night probably, Thursday night or Friday night. Nothing to watch, looking through all these titles of things I've never heard of and people I've never, And so I came across J. Edgar. And that is a movie that Clint Eastwood directed with Leonardo DiCaprio. And, those kind of stories, when you take a young Hoover when he's in his early 20s and then take him till his death, they're hard to do. You're really covering a lot of ground. And I thought they did a pretty good job with that. Did you see that, Jim? I mean, yeah, go ahead.
I didn't.
Yeah, I would, because I wanted to ask you, and I thought that would have been a movie that you'd seen. They talk, and maybe one of our listeners can write in and tell me what. There seems to be a thing with Hoover, somewhere around Kennedy and Martin Luther King or whatever, where he confides in his, closest, like you call her his secretary or whatever, that
His boyfriend, his
girlfriend, whatever,
longtime companion, Clyde Tolson. Isn't that who you?
His longtime companion was some man.
Clyde.
Yeah, Clyde. But no, he basically had what he called like these secret files.
Yeah. Oh,
and
he did.
Well.
He most definitely did.
If you're in the FBI, you're gonna have everything's secret, and they're all in files. So it's not okay. Yeah. So everything's So he had secret files, and of course we know about Kennedy, and we know about Martin Luther King, but there seemed to be an effort by him to say, I want information that nobody else can get their hands on. And when towards the end of the movie, when Nixon finds out that he's dead, Nixon says to his guys, get over there, get all this stuff. I want to see everything. As if he was holding on to information that, was somehow derogatory and or, for. And do you have any idea, Jim, what I'm talking about when it comes to please tell me what the secret.
He was reputed to keep dirt on everybody. And he had material on Kennedy going back to World War II when he was the son of the ambassador, and had some flirtation with a German woman who turned out to be a spy. So he had just pretty extensive files, and he apparently was really good at using them to ingratiate himself to politicians, and knowing that he had possible blackmail material on them. At one point, in Johnson's presidency, he thought about not reappointing Hoover to another term as FBI director.
Right.
And almost immediately he went out and reappointed Hoover, because Hoover let it be known, that stuff could come out if that happened. If he wasn't happy, stuff could come out. And Johnson's rationale for that was, I'd rather have him inside the tent pissing out than outside the tent pissing in.
Right.
So he realized he couldn't really cut Hoover off with that kind of material that Hoover no doubt had. He was not afraid to use it either, or at least to threaten to use it.
Go ahead, Jim. Go ahead.
I think the reason I didn't watch the movie was because I didn't care much for J. Edgar Hoover. And the more I learned about him after he died, the less I thought of him. And especially what he did to Martin Luther King, how he personally targeted Martin Luther King with god-awful stuff. He had tapes of King messing around with other women. And he would send letters to King's wife telling her about this. He would send letters to King saying, kill yourself. You should kill yourself. You should die. You should be so ashamed.
I think that's depicted in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I didn't particularly care to watch a movie about him. So I think that's essentially why I didn't watch it.
Yeah.
I probably should have, but,
yeah,
it didn't seem like an appetizer. It wasn't a subject I wanted to spend a couple hours with.
Yeah.
I suspect.
I thought Leo was real good, and I thought that it's Clint Eastwood, and but I knew the FBI had files on everybody, and I knew they had them on Martin Luther King, and there seemed to be a group of files that even the impression that I got, there was a group of files even the FBI didn't have.
That's true. They were held by Hoover
just him. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
and that's kind of how the movie closes out, and I didn't understand exactly what that.
Well, I wonder what Nixon's people found if they did get over to Hoover's place right after he died.
Well, they didn't. According to the movie, his secretary and the woman who'd been with him for 40 years working with him. Got rid of all basically the last shot in the movie is her shredding or whatever you call it, all of those files that Nixon wanted to get his hands on.
You're talking about how difficult it is to cover a person's life in a movie, and I thought DiCaprio did a pretty good job of that in Martin Scorsese's movie about Howard Hughes, The Aviator. You remember seeing that?
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't think that was such a bad movie.
Who directed Aviator?
Martin Scorsese.
Scorsese, yeah.
That's one of the 6 movies that DiCaprio has made with Scorsese so far.
Right.
It's 5 or 6, I think, somewhere in that range.
Who directed this new one? You told me earlier in the podcast.
Paul Thomas Anderson.
Right.
Yeah.
Jim, when you have a movie that opens and it's the #1 movie in America, and it opens to, you said 16 million?
About
22.
22. Okay, 22 million. Those aren't like the numbers that used to be.
No, God, even 40 years ago,
Those are the
new-
numbers that Navy SEAls got.
Yeah, I mean,
Their
30
first
years
weekend.
ago,
So
even
what's
30 years ago, like Lethal Weapon 2 opened with $50 million.
right? Yes.
Movies could open at 50, 60, 70, 80, even 100,
Right.
30 years ago. They
On
would
their
open at
first
that.
weekend, correct?
On their first weekend, if it
Right.
was a big movie that people, and this movie is one I've been aware of for a while. The advertising on it's quite heavy. It's one I intend to go see this week. One battle after another. So there is some, awareness of that movie out there, and still I'm a little surprised that it only did 22 million, but it has a budget of close to 150 million. So it's not likely going to, be any kind of box
What's it
office
about?
hit, but it's really tough material. Anderson is fond of a writer named Thomas Pynchon, who is kind of literary among the literary elite in the last half century in this country, but he's almost impossible to read. Very popular in the college circuit. I read a book of his called The Crying of Lot 47, which I just could not understand at all. And then in the 70s, he wrote this massive novel called Gravity's Rainbow. It's kind of weird stuff. This is based on a Thomas Pynchon book called Vineland, which is basically about some 60s revolutionary underground 20 years later who are trying to living middle class lives, except it's kind of hard to do when you're a former revolutionary used to blowing up buildings. And DiCaprio plays a guy who was, a revolutionary in his younger days, and he hooked up with a woman who was kind of a Black Panther type. And he's got a daughter, and Sean Penn is a rigid, stract military guy who kidnaps his daughter, and he goes after his daughter. The movie is inspired by the Pynchon book, but Anderson has made a lot of deviations from it, and he spent a long time developing the story too. And from what I've heard, it's very good, very good. 2.5 hours. I'm very curious to see what he did with it.
Yeah.
I hear the performances are really great.
Yeah.
Well,
you would expect that, and I've seen, I don't think I've seen Benicio del Toro out promoting a movie. I don't think I've ever seen him out promoting a movie before.
I'm having trouble remembering any that he might have promoted heavily, but
yeah.
He's in 2 movies by directors who make kind of odd movies. He's in that. What's the Wes Anderson movie that he just recently did? The Phoenix Scheme or something like that. The Phoenician Scheme.
Yes.
Yeah.
Benicio del Toro was in that, and now he's in this Paul Thomas Anderson movie as well. So
right.
I
always remember his performance in a movie that an actor directed, and where he was a prisoner, and he was having sex with based on a true story.
Right. So that's not a movie. That's a TV show. It's very good. It's called Escape at Dannemora.
Oh yeah.
Did I say it was
Ben
a TV
Stiller.
show?
No, you said it was a movie. That's with Paul Dano is also in. I think Ben Stiller is the one that directed
Ben
it.
Stiller
directed
directed
it,
it. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, got a lot of acclaim. Of course, I just saw Usual Suspects again a couple of weeks ago. And, he stands out in that movie. And I really remember him from Traffic. Remember that Steven Soderbergh movie?
Yeah.
And he really stood out in that one.
Yeah. Well, who'd you say directed?
Ben Stiller.
Ben Stiller. You remember, Jim? This is probably going back 3 years now. When that came out, Ben Stiller was quite hot, and there was a time when Ben Stiller was, and what is the woman from MSNBC?
I'll tell you, I was just going to mention that Rachel Maddow
Yeah.
had a podcast
Okay.
about the prosecutors who took down Spiro Agnew.
Right.
And I got a hold of the producer of that. And Ron Shelton and I were talking to Rachel Maddow and her producer, but especially to her producer, about getting rights to that to adapt it into a movie or a miniseries. We were thinking of it as a miniseries. And Ron was going to meet with the producer, and Rachel had been, we were in like a little email communication with her. And then all of a sudden, Ben Stiller and Lorne Michaels, with his Broadway video production company, got interested, and they were able to, more or less take the project away from us because Stiller had Escape from Dannemora out at that time. And that was getting such acclaim that they, basically got the project. But it was called Bagman. Rachel Maddow's podcast was called Bagman, and it was about these three federal prosecutors who uncovered evidence of corruption in local politics in Baltimore, and that led to ultimately discovering that when he was governor, Spiro Agnew was taking bribes, and he continued to take them when he was vice president. So, he basically had to resign.
He had to resign, Jim, and I remember that he resigned kind of in the early days of Watergate. Is that correct?
Very early. It came as a surprise. This was right around the time of the Saturday Night Massacre when Nixon fired his attorney general. He wanted to fire the special prosecutor,
Yes.
Archibald Cox. And the attorney general said, "No, I'm not going to fire him because when I became attorney general, I promised in my Senate confirmation that I wouldn't fire a special prosecutor. So I'm not going to fire him." And then the second in command wouldn't fire him, and it took a guy named Robert Bork
who ended up on the Supreme Court.
Well, he ended up nominated for the Supreme Court 15 years later, and he got defeated because a lot of people harbored a grudge against him for being the guy who fired the special prosecutor.
Right.
So that's what the Spiro Agnew situation was all about. And Rachel Maddow did this podcast about 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
That was quite interesting, really interesting to listen to. Quite a good story about these federal prosecutors step by step, building this corruption case against local officials. And then they find out, oh my God, it included Agnew when he was governor. So
governor of where? Where was Agnew?
Of Maryland. He was governor of Maryland before he became vice president.
Well, and Jim did I know that he had to step.
The movie never got made, but I know I've seen various versions of the screenplay, and it still hasn't
of what you're talking about
of the Rachel Maddow podcast.
Oh, you've seen various scripts of it?
Yeah, I've seen a couple drafts of the screenplay that Ben Stiller's company was developing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it seemed like a long time ago. Did Spiro Agnew? I know that he had to resign, but is that all he had to do? Was resign? Yeah, he didn't do any jail time or anything. He wasn't prosecuted or anything like that, right?
He pled guilty to tax evasion and paid a fine and resigned. He had to resign. That was part of the deal. He couldn't ever run for office again, but he didn't have to do any jail time or he didn't actually have to cop to accepting bribes, although he did. And that's what this was about. But he essentially pled to some kind of tax evasion.
Right.
And got to go.
Whenever you hear about or you watch any depiction of all the president's men, any depiction of Watergate, documentaries about Watergate, documentaries about the hearings and the John Dean and all that kind of stuff. You don't really hear anything about Agnew.
That was the summer of the Watergate hearings, like Howard Baker asking, "What did the president know and when did he know it?
Right.
Which became kind of a common
Yes.
phrase through those hearings. And that's when when Fred Thompson, who became an actor, was
Oh,
the
yeah.
was
Yeah,
was the
yeah.
Republican young attorney for the Republicans.
Look
And
up
he's
Fred
the one.
Thompson.
He's the
Go ahead.
one. He's the one who was asked. There was a real surprise because those were on TV every day, and you watched them. You know, a lot of people were watching those hearings. And one day there was kind of surprise when they called this Secret Service guy to testify. His name was Alexander Butterfield, and
Right.
nobody quite knew what was going on. And Thompson asked him, "Mr. Butterfield, you know, you have this job in the White House, and you do this. Were you aware of any listening devices
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
office of the presidency?" And you just look at Butterfield, and he's kind of squirming. He says, I was aware of, and that's when the news broke that Nixon had been taping himself. And the
Right.
fight became Nixon handing over the tapes. And that's what caused the firing of Archibald Cox. Cox went to court, got a subpoena for the tapes, and Nixon said, "I don't want to hand them over. I won't be handing them over." And ordered the firing of Cox. Ultimately, and Nixon tried all kinds of compromises. He was going to have some Southern 90-year-old senator listen to the tapes and give his interpretation of them. He released limited editions of the tape. He had all these books stacked on his desk. This is all I'm gonna release this stuff. I'm gonna release a whole bunch of it. Finally, about a year later,
Sounds like the Jeffrey Epstein situation. But
about a year later, the Supreme Court ruled 8-0 that he had to hand over the tapes unredacted and all that. And within a few days, he was gone because there was a tape where he basically said, "Yeah, have the FBI, have the CIA tell the FBI not to get into this, have the FBI back off." Basically, yeah, he approved a cover up. And he had to leave.
Nixon, you're talking about?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't.
It was a smoking gun tape, they called it. And a bunch of Republicans.
What was the name of Nixon's secretary?
Rosemary Wood.
Right. And so there, at some point,
one of the tapes had this 18.5-minute gap. Remember the infamous 18.5-minute gap?
Yes.
And she was explaining that she might have done that when she was transcribing the tape, and then she had to take a call, and she still had her foot on the pedal on the tape recorder. So they took a picture of her demonstrating how that could have happened. She looked like she was sliding into second base, like a baseball player or something. It was ludicrous, her explanation for what was happening.
What might have happened? Why that 18 and that 18 minutes was pretty prominent in the who ended up doing that, because obviously Nixon didn't either. Who ended up doing the most time for that, do you think?
I think Gordon Liddy might have, because he was such a hard ass,
Right.
Liddy was the guy who said to the Nixon people, "Hey, if you want to take me out, just tell me what corner to be standing on, and I'll be there, and send a hitman by to take me out." And he refused to roll over. He refused to, cooperate. He did some real jail time. John Mitchell, the former Attorney General, did close to 2 years. John Ehrlichman did a couple of years. Haldeman did some time. Dean did some time. Dean did about 3 months. But he got out because
I don't remember.
he testified.
I don't remember. And maybe I just wasn't paying attention. But I saw, the vice president Vance was on probably Fox or something like that. He was on yesterday. Maybe yesterday. Maybe I try not to look at stuff that's 2 or 3 days old. A day ago or 2 days ago, and he was talking about prices for groceries being high, the prices for this being high, and how high the prices are, and the fact that they had inherited all of those prices from Joe Biden. So that's what he was saying, and then you cut to like some congressman who has got like the exact opposite talking points. You know, he's saying how cheap the groceries are, how cheap gasoline is, how cheap it, you know, it's just like, oh my God, you know, like,
Well,
God,
it's kind of hard to make the argument that they inherited inflation. It was really more the other way around, but the inflation was given a real big spur by COVID.
yeah.
You know, that's what was the real cause of it. The you know, all the breakdown of the supply chain, et cetera, the scarcity of goods when there was still a fair amount of demand, you know, with all the stimulus checks that people were getting and enhanced unemployment benefits, people still had money to spend.
Those were the good times, man.
Oh, yeah.
When the
For
government
sure.
was shoveling money my way as
When-
compared to me shoveling my money towards them.
When I was getting that 600 a week extra on unemployment
Right.
for, you know, for being employed in the gig economy, yeah.
Yeah.
But so there was still money, you know, there was still demand. There just wasn't as much supply. And when there's demand kind of exceeds supply, prices go up. So inflation really got a jolt during the pandemic days. And then when Biden became president, the rate of inflation kind of leveled off, but prices don't come down. You know, they didn't come down for groceries. That's people were still grousing about that. And they really haven't come down at all, and they're going
Jim,
up.
What did you want to know about Fred Thompson?
I wanted to know, was he a congressman, Jim, or a senator?
No, he was not he became
Or was
a
he just an
senator
aide to-
ultimately. He was a young lawyer, and he was a staff lawyer for the I think it was the Senate Judiciary Committee that held the Watergate hearings, and he was a staff lawyer.
Because he
And
was
then
there. He was
he
right
was a
there
young
sitting
guy,
next
and
to
he-
Sakura or whatever that
Yeah,
guy's-
yeah, and he went back to Tennessee. He was Howard Baker, who was the Republican, who was the highest ranking Republican on that committee, was a senator from Tennessee, and he had hired Thompson from Tennessee to
Okay.
be this staff lawyer. When the hearings were over, Thompson went back to Tennessee, started his own practice, and he got a case one time of a woman whose son had been injured, and it was and she was working for the governor and discovered that the governor of Tennessee was selling pardons. It was a big scandal. And she wound up, her name was Marie, and she went to Fred Thompson, and he was her attorney who kind of helped her when the governor came after her. And she basically ratted out a governor who went to prison for handing out pardons for money. And a writer named Peter Moss wrote a book about this called Marie. The book was purchased for movie rights. It got made into a movie, and when they were casting the movie, the whomever was directing it said, "Hey, Fred, why don't you play yourself?" So Fred played himself in that movie.
Okay.
And then he started getting cast for things like The Hunt for Red October, In the Line of Fire, etc. And he oftentimes would play like a chief of staff to a president or maybe a military. In The Hunt for Red October, he plays an admiral on a ship.
What else? Do you see any other big credits?
Cape Fear,
Cape Fear, yeah.
Days of Thunder,
Days of Thunder, okay, yeah.
Die Hard 2.
Yeah. I was
Ultimately, I think he became a senator from Tennessee.
Well, he was a good actor. I mean, he
Yeah,
was certainly
yeah. He
believable
works.
as that. You know, he was I always thought he was a very, very good actor, and it's interesting and odd how people, end up being on screen in things like Hunt for Red October. How they got from place A to place B, or from I didn't. Last night I got home and I was like, I needed something to kind of fall asleep to. And again, I look through stuff and I'm like, I can't, whatever. And I'm like,
Yeah.
And I saw Black Hawk Down. And, I hadn't seen Black Hawk Down for about 20 years, but I remember being whenever 20 years ago. So I was 50 or in my late 40s or whatever. But I read the book, and that book I just thought was so good.
He's a very good writer. Mark Bowden wrote that book, and I read a book of his about the takeover of the American embassy in Iran. It was called Guests of the Ayatollah. He's written a number of really good books. Capturing Pablo, about the hunt for Pablo Escobar, got optioned for movies. He wrote Black Hawk Down, and all of his work is really good.
Well,
they made a documentary recently, I believe, of the people. I think it's on Netflix, of the guys that were in that fight.
You know what? You're talking about Black Hawk Down.
Yeah, that incident. They made a documentary about the guys that were there, and then they released that on Netflix, I think, about a year ago.
Well, I saw that, and I didn't realize. I knew that. First of all, let me just say that when I read it, and I thought, like, oh my God, this would be a great movie.
Yeah.
I wonder who's got the rights to this. So I called Ed and said, God, I just read this great book. Who's got the rights to this? You know who it is, right, Jim?
Ridley.
No. Well, no, Jerry Bruckheimer.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Of course, Jerry Bruckheimer had the rights to everything. And I don't know. There were a lot of interesting roles in there, but I'll tell you something. Also, Tommy Sizemore is also in that movie.
Is that right?
And to tell you the truth, I was a little disappointed with Tommy because, I've said on the podcast before, in Saving Private Ryan, when he gets shot, when like shit happens to him, he always just acts like he's irritated, like to be there. People are getting shot all around him. He's like, well, fuck this. What am I doing? Get in the truck. They're shooting us. Well, fucking shoot back. I mean, he's just kind of has that thing. But he really does the exact same thing in Black Hawk Down that he does in Saving Private Ryan. Like he's bored being in the middle of a firefight and pissed off, when he gets shot or one of his guys go down. He's more irritated than he is frightened so he does the same thing, not taking anything away from him, but I was kind of like, well, he's kind of playing the same character here, because on the podcast before I talked about Saving Private Ryan and gone like, I love this performance, and he makes some really, really interesting choices as an actor. And, and then I saw Black Hawk Down. Which one of those was made first? Do you know?
Saving Private Ryan was first.
Saving Private Ryan, yeah. And he kind of does the same thing in Black Hawk Down, They're shooting at us. Shoot back. But yeah. Of course, it was Jerry Bruckheimer, and I put that on for a while, and then I watched I decided I'd seen it before, and I knew what was going to happen. I watched about 45 minutes of it, and then I put in the football game, which it's always kind of a rough one when football teams tie.
Great game, though.
It was a great game. They tied. So just so people are aware, one of the reasons I'm doing the podcast is because a year and a half ago, during the Super Bowl, which right after the Super Bowl, I was at a party with Kaylin.
Here, where we're recording right now.
What? Yeah.
Yeah, we were here at this.
Oh, we were right here. Yeah, at this location, and Doug Stanhope, who I'd been betting with, and he's been on the podcast. And if you haven't listened to Doug's, that was the very first podcast I ever did, that I ever hosted, whatever. And and we'd bet football, and we just bet one game every week. And he had gone on this incredible losing streak where he lost like 9 in a row, which is just horrendous. It's like, and neither one of us have that much knowledge, and we pick a game, and whatever the line is, that's the line, and then somebody picks a team. And he went like 0-9, which is, like I said to him on the podcast, it's like flipping a quarter and getting 9 tails
9
in a
straight
row.
times. Yeah.
So anyway, so this football season comes around, and he won the first 2 games. So I let the money that he owed me from last year carry over. So he owed me $700. So he won the first 2 games, and we're always getting. That's why people, I think, like betting football. Most every guy I know, has got somebody they bet with, and it's not really about the money as much as you don't fucking have any idea what you're doing. You and your stupid team.
Little rooting interest in the outcome.
Yeah.
Like Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems. Yeah, kind of rooting interest when your life is at stake.
Well, but so anyway, so he won the first 2. So I was writing things to him. You're on a winning streak, like, oh my God, this could be your year, And then I had who played?
This is week 4.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Who played?
Green Bay and the Cowboys.
Yeah, I had Green Bay, and they were giving up 4 or 5 or something like that. So it ends in a tie. So I win. So now we're even for the year. So now he owes me $700 again, and but he has some sort of podcast. I think it's on Friday evenings that he talks football, and he wanted me to come on this Friday, but I was busy and I couldn't get on it. But I'm going to go on it next Friday, basically to promote this podcast, but basically to talk shit about him and his, like why anybody would ever listen to his podcast about the NFL when like he doesn't, And then I like to joke around with him, and I'll go on that podcast, and one of the other people on the podcast, will ask me, a question about that game or like the upcoming games, and they'll ask me about a game, and I'll say, which team has got the red uniforms, and which team has got the purple uniform, the black uniform. I like the purple uniforms a lot better. I like
It's like betting on
race horses.
The color of the jockey's colors. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to go with Timmy all the time, and also the guy Nick. I just saw him recently. I was watching A Bridge Too Far. Jim, do you know that movie? That wasn't that directed by somebody really like Attenborough? Attenborough.
Richard Attenborough, the former actor.
Yeah. So when I first worked with Nick on Rampage, Nick had told me that he had worked either with or had been around Olivier. So, and back then, Olivier was, there was James Dean and there was Marlon Brando, and they kind of changed the way that American actors acted. But Olivier was always sort of known as that actor from the pond across the way that would do all the Shakespeare, and I mean he was really considered the best of the best. And
he was showing
what's the one that Dustin Hoffman did with him?
Yeah, I was going to say he was showing up in mainstream American movies like Marathon Man.
Yeah, well, what's he doing when he's grinding his teeth? What's his name?
That's Marathon Man. Yeah, that's
what's he saying?
William Goldman. Is it safe?
Is it safe?
Is it safe? How the fuck do I know? Yeah, it's safe. Yeah.
He's a
Drill a hole
dentist, and
through
he's
his
finding
tooth.
like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
most
yeah.
painful part, dusting off. It's got his mouth.
Oh,
open.
and this
Is
is
it
going to
safe?
hurt.
Is
Yeah.
it safe? And dusting off. That's like
He's
losing
a
his
Nazi
mind, man.
war criminal. He's like Dr. Mengele. in a
Yes.
way. You know, the White Swan they call him at the end of the movie, and
Yeah.
he's a sadistic Nazi, and he's drilling holes in Dustin Hoffman's teeth. You know?
Saying, "Is it safe?"
Is it safe?
Dustin
Is it
Hoffman's like,
safe?
"Yes,
Yeah,
no,
it's safe. Yeah, I don't know
maybe."
what you're talking about. Maybe, I don't know. Go check. I don't ask me. What do I know? You know.
Yeah, I always told people that if I was ever in the military and ever got captured and, was sent to like one of those camps and interrogated, they'd have to torture me to shut up.
Yeah. What do you want to know? I'm an open book.
Hey, give me something I can write on.
Where's the tape recorder? Let's go.
Draw you up a map here, and there was a guy, Jim. I'm sure that you know about this guy. There's a guy that was in, I think, the Hanoi Hilton, who kind of, once he was captured, sort of acted like he was stupid, and and therefore the North Koreans sort of just like, yeah, he's
the
the dumb
Vietnamese,
one, he's that
Vietnamese,
stupid
the
one or
Vietnamese.
whatever,
Yeah.
So his name is Douglas Brent Hegdahl.
That's the guy I'm talking about.
Yeah, and he was a U.S. Navy sailor captured during Vietnam, and he pretended to be dumb, to which often hum the song "Old Man MacDonald Had a Farm." When he was captured, leading his captors to believe he was dim-witted. The deception allowed him to gather crucial intelligence, leading to the names of over 450 fellow POWs, which he later revealed upon his release, making him a valuable asset.
Yeah, that's the point that I wanted to make.
Yeah.
Here was this guy actually saying, "Oh, McDonald had a farm," and they were all like, "This guy's crazy." And the entire time, he was documenting who was in there, how long they'd been there, and what kind of conditions they were living under, and that's an interesting.
Well, and the Vietnamese, I think, released him early, cut him loose in some sort of gesture or exchange
cut him
or
loose
something.
early too. He's giving up all our secrets.
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Well, and
Get
and
rid
then
of this guy.
Well, when he was released and debriefed by the military intelligence, he remembered the names of 450 people in that place in lots of detail.
Yes.
He had a really huge. I mean, he really was able to be a treasure trove of information.
Yes.
When they were able to debrief him, but he had been cut loose early from. Which they would do occasionally, and the Vietnamese figured, oh, it's imbecile, we can get rid of him, we don't need to keep him here for anything. He's no value to us. Go ahead and cut him loose.
Yeah.
But they didn't realize that was actually kind of a treasure trove of information. So,
Jim, I think that although we didn't really talk about movies that much today, I think that we're gonna just put a wrapper on this one, this last 63 minutes, and take a break, and then we'll come back Thursday. And we'll come back Thursday and do another one on Thursday. Are you available on Thursday, Jim?
Yeah.
There's a reason why I always wear the same black T-shirt, Jim. So, I couldn't wear the shirt that Caitlin's got on right now and do one of these on Monday and then do another one on Thursday. Does that make sense to you, Jim?
Not really, since I'm not looking at either one of you.
Well, he's got okay. All right. Well, he's got on anything other than a black T-shirt's going to kind of give it away. But
I do have court this week, but thankfully it's only Wednesday.
Okay.
And not Thursday. So
okay. All right. Well, we'll be back. We'll be back Thursday. All right. And
that's fine. Yeah.
So, and if you're listening, please subscribe and tell friends about it. I've actually I've got cards now. I walk around the supermarket going, hey, listen to my podcast. Hey, everybody I meet, like, you listen to podcasts here. So, but I think that we need when we get Cameron on, and that'll be very helpful. But I also I want to reach out to Fede. And so anyway, okay. Thank you. Cue the music. Cue bingo. All right.
Dirtier than you are doing.